A few people have asked in the comments what Javier Milei is doing to Argentina. The short answer is he's attempting to do something that Argentina has failed to do for 100 years. And he's doing it by running Argentina's oldest and cruelest machine at full speed. To understand Milei and his reforms, you need to understand the country first, and see why it keeps producing people like Milei who say that they can fix it. In 1913, Argentina was one of the richest economies on earth. Richer per capita than France, richer per capita than Germany even. Now the wealth was real, but it concealed the machine that produced it, and who really got the benefit from it. The wealth began on the Pampas. Colossal estates assembled through colonial conquest and political allocation during the wars of the late 19th century. Some of the largest are over 1 million hectares. When compared to the size of Argentina at 297 million hectares, you can see the scale of the issue. These colossal farming estates produce massive quantities of grain and beef exported all over the world. The key thing to understand about the Argentine economy is simply this. Those massive estates earn huge funds in dollars from exporting this agricultural surplus. But everyone else in the country earns in pesos. This system worked relatively well until the start of World War I, when Argentina lost its largest net customer, Britain. Before World War I, the UK was a massive exporter of...
I want to get deeper into this kind of stuff, right? I wish somebody could explain it for me, right? They have these estates. Are they private? Surely not. They're government, right? They're owned by the government. Okay, the government earns in dollars. Okay. But are they not able to convert that and put it back into the country? You earn in dollars. That's a good thing. That's more peso, right? You can create more jobs with that. You can improve the facilities with that. Unless they were just taking the money for themselves.
Its capital surplus, it invested in nearly everything. Railways, ports, banks, utilities. And by 1913, Britain had invested nearly £357 million into Argentina. That's about half of all British investment into all of South America at the time, and was a colossal share of the Argentine economy itself. But during World War I, Britain stopped being a nation that was generating a surplus, exporting its goods to the world, with money left over to recycle, to invest in the rest of the planet. The war was massively financially damaging, and the UK took on huge international loans to be able to fight it. And so then Argentina's biggest customer stopped sending the money in because it had no money left to send. After the First World War, the global economy was sluggishly growing until it all got spanked again by the Great Depression. And right in that time frame is the date of Argentina's first military coup in 1930. From there, a century of governments, military, authoritarian, and even civilian, all made the same fatal mistake. Simply different ways to promise more claims on the country than its supply of export dollars could afford. Skipping to 2023, Argentina has defaulted nationally 9 times, with a simple repeating tone, constantly exhausting its foreign currency reserves. In 2023, it was posting inflation of 211%. Then onto the stage enters Javier Milei, friend of Elon Musk, nutter with a chainsaw. And his policy...
I just read that the inflation rates were 33%. Oh. Okay. Put this so you guys can see it. This is the inflation rate over the last 10 years. So 2016, 40. All right. 25. Okay. I mean, all of these are bad. Like, all of these are really, really bad. Like, legitimately, 4 is like 5-6 times worse than average, right? 25 even. 4 16. Yeah. 34, 55, 42, 48, 72. Like, what happened here? What happened here? Bumbleclaw. And then they done it again. But now it's down to close to the lowest. So that's good, right? Well, you would think, I don't know.
Posting inflation of 211%. Then onto the stage enters Javier Milei, friend of Elon Musk, nutter with a chainsaw. And his policies flowed in 3 moves. Firstly, the fiscal chainsaw. He cut Argentina's state spending to the bone. Subsidies, transfers, public works, all cut. Argentina finally did produce its first fiscal surplus in decades. Number 2, he devalued the peso massively. And number 3, he opened the doors to the world and massively deregulated the economy. And then opened the RIGI investment scheme. 30 years of tax, customs and currency stability. for investors willing to build pipelines, mines, energy projects. At the macro level, it looks as if much of it has started to work. Inflation is down to 30% from 211%. The budget is in a surplus, foreign reserves are recovering, and the country risk, the spread on its bonds, has fallen. Oil production is surging, and it's now an energy exporter. And mining investment has accelerated. On paper, it looks as if the economy is truly recovering, but the catch is very simple to see. These industries that are now booming in mining and energy production are massively capital intensive, and so the balance sheet of the country is improving quite a lot faster than the labor market is. And this is Argentina's two-speed economy. As we said before, the big exporters, the pampas, the mines, the energy producers in dollars, they're all doing fine under Milei. But those holding pesos at the bottom got crushed. The devaluation smashed the value of their holdings and their pensions. Their real wages crashed when the state was cut to pieces. The official poverty rate in his first year surged to over 50%. It's now falling back to a still not so great 28%. But the way they're measuring it is slightly optimistic. The basket of consumer goods that they use to reference absolute poverty in Argentina hasn't changed for a large number of years when consumption patterns have. And so a 28% poverty rate is an optimistic one for Argentina. And this is the core difficulty of its reforms, the distributive effects. As usual, the costs are borne by the poorest in society and the benefits accrue to the top. Now let's jump back a second. Argentina defaulted 9 times. What's the pattern there? Most other countries have recessions or depressions.
I gotta Google what a default is. So when Argentina defaults, it just means that essentially they failed to pay debts. They can't pay back debts. Them man bad pay. And America loaned them, 40 million. To a bunch of bad pay. That's crazy. I don't know what kind of trust Trump has in that Negro, boy, but I ain't giving you 40 million. If I know that you've defaulted 9 times, why would I ever loan you 40 million? That don't make sense to me. But who am I?
Argentina has currency events, and the trap is largely the same every time. Economic growth pulls in imports. Imports consume the dollars. The country uses a soft peg mechanism, a corridor for the value of the peso, that they need to maintain. And when the country runs short of dollars, the peso breaks. And then suddenly the inflation explodes, because all of those imported goods, now costed in pesos which have collapsed, are much more expensive in Argentina. Now that machine that smashed Argentina about 9 times so far is really what Milei wants to fix. And it's a pretty risky gamble. The bet is that the mining, oil, energy projects are exported across the world and bring in new dollars, and the bet is that the peso holds for long enough that those dollars come in to replenish them. Now so far this gamble is slightly paying off, but it's mostly driven by other gamblers. A large number of foreign investors are looking at Milei's reforms. They're seeing the inflation rates come down, and possibly new dollars coming into the system from mining and oil. And to them it's worth the gamble, because the gains look fantastic. If you look at the bonds available in the Argentine market, they pay rates of 50, 60, 70% interest rate because the inflation rate is so high. Now, if you're an investor and you think that inflation is coming down and the peso won't blow up, that interest rate is incredibly attractive and you'll make a fortune. And the other part is the inverse relationship of bonds. The interest rate is inversely correlated to the price of bonds. Now, if you think inflation is going down, you can accept a lower interest rate. That interest rate going down is pushing the value of the bond up. And so if you're a foreign investor willing to take the gamble, you get paid nearly twice. And that inflow has been enormous and is part of the reason why the peso is holding up relatively well and has stayed within its bracket. But as said, it's a gamble, and here's what happens if it breaks. Let's go back to the two-speed economy. At the very top, the pampas and the exporting industries like mining and energy are generating their revenues in dollars. At the bottom, the rest of the economy is earning its salaries in pesos. Now there's farmers at the top selling in dollars. That trade is priced against global markets. And simply, why would a farmer sell beef in pesos to Buenos Aires for less money than he could sell it for in dollars? Right. If the value of the peso goes down, the farmer can still sell in dollars. Now, that means if you're in Buenos Aires holding now basically worthless pesos, you simply have to pay more pesos for some beef or some grain.
Right.
And that, in Argentina, is inflation. Now, if that inflation comes back, think about that gamble we were talking about before, the bond traders. They're betting on the inflation going down and the interest rates following it down as well. If there's any abrupt change in confidence in the value of the peso, this inflation engine kicks up and those speculative gamblers playing with the bonds are going to run. And that's how you get default number 10. Now, Milei has better support than former governments, but the system is still fragile. The IMF are behind him, the US Treasury are also behind him, and his government are printing a fiscal surplus, meaning that investors aren't so scared that the government will need to print new pesos to try and pay off the debt. Now, that does help confidence in the peso, but the scale here in different orders of magnitude. If all the gamblers run at the same time, spooked by any fear in the peso,
cooked.
The safety net built around him from the IMF and the US Treasury might not be enough to contain it. Now, as a final review, if you look at Javier Milei's policy, he's tried to cure the sickness that Argentina has had since 1913, which is critically a lack of foreign exchange reserves, which has led to repeated national defaults and giant currency collapses. But if you look at who's paid the price for these reforms, it's not the dollar-holding elite, those who own the pampas, those who own the mining rights. It's the people who hold the pesos, whose real wages have been smashed, whose pensions have been obliterated, all while the gains so far from his policies have gone right back to the top. Those who already owned the land, those who already owned the mining rights, and those who already got paid in dollars. Argentina has always been a deep...
I mean, imagine you had a pension, right? And you had, I don't know, you had 20,000 Argentinian peso. All that shit happens, your currency goes from, I don't know what it was, to what we've seen in the other videos, if you've been watching, lock in. It goes all the way down. Now your pension's worthless. That is genuinely dark, because I'm sure you guys know how pensions work, right? They're trading them, right? They're in some sort of a stock somewhere. Shit just goes all the way down. That's you finished. You ain't got no pension. Scary.
Unequal country. Every attempted fix has seemed to make it even more unequal, with the losses falling on the poorest in society. And it's why today, the peso is effectively worth less than 1 V-buck. That's actually a fact, which is wild. If I'm going to review Javier Milei's policy, I'm going to give him a -1 out of 10. He's essentially bought a lottery ticket for the Argentine economy, and he's paid for that lottery ticket with the poorest in society. And the winnings of that lottery, as it always does in Argentina, a fundamentally and by design unequal country, will always end up with the winners. And the difficult lesson they failed to learn through 9 sovereign currency crises is simple, that a nation fundamentally built on inequality is always destined...
This was a great video, I can't lie, very informative. Even though I'm not the most versed, when we start to go this deep into politics with some of the verbiage, I still caught like a good grasp of it. I do wonder, like, what is the actual fix if this is in the way? Because in my mind, I'm like, yeah, he's taking a big risk, but like, what's the downside? The country, I mean, how shit could the country really get? But he's giving him a -1 out of 10, because even if it hits, it's going to benefit the rich people infinitely more. So what is the strategy that should be used? Maybe that's the $1 million question, right? Maybe that's something that nobody's figured out yet. But you guys let me know your thoughts and opinions about this in the comments, man. It's not looking good for Argentina.
This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the ozone. I just can't let this go. This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone.